One nurse in particular actually had been an employee of mine many years ago.
Oh, no. Were you a good boss or
No,
bad
thank
boss?
gosh. I was a good boss.
Okay.
I was a good boss.
That's what a bad boss would say, right?
Well, what we laughed about is that she was working for me while she was a nursing student, and she'd work Saturdays. I managed a bank, and I would let her bring her textbooks to work, and she'd study at her wicket between customers.
Yeah.
And crazy how all those years later, she is now a nurse in charge of my cancer care.
Getting a cancer diagnosis is devastating news, and 2 in 5 of us in Canada are going to get that news at some point. Today, my guest and I are that 2 in 5. So imagine getting that news, learning you've got a 20% chance of survival, and then driving home and delivering that bombshell to your family. The worst. That was Steve Slack 5 years ago, and he's been proving every single day since that cancer picked the wrong guy. He's one of the most inspiring people you will ever meet in your entire life. He, along with what he calls the Slack Pack, have been raising awareness and funds for the Lake Ridge Health Foundation. I am honored to have him here today. Please brace for impact with Steve Slack.
I was diagnosed June 18th, 2021, during a colonoscopy, and found out days later that it was stage 4 and had gone to my liver, and I had 23 more tumors there as well. And
how do you process that? Because you're going through this, and I've heard you tell this story before, and you've got it down. But like, back up a sec, because in the span of a couple of days, you're going from like, hey, like I'm defecating blood to I'm sorry, cancer, and it's the worst stage.
Yeah, and it might sound silly, but I didn't see that coming. Like, I was thinking, there's probably something wrong with me, but at 48 years old, I wasn't thinking cancer.
Yeah.
And so how did I handle it? That first weekend, I was angry. I was upset. I was angry. You know, I
like at the universe, right?
Absolutely. It felt so unfair, and I thought, especially because I was told that, I had no more than 3 years to live.
That's
really
nuts.
And
when the doctor says that to you, like, is this in person? Is this over the phone?
Over the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And my wife was with me, so she just started shrieking, and I'm just trying to keep it cool. And, I immediately think about her, and I think about the kids, and I just, I looked at her and I said, I'm not going anywhere. I've got too much unfinished business in terms of being a dad and a husband. And so
you're like fueled by revenge at that point.
Absolutely. I'm like, cancer picked the wrong guy. I'm not going to. So initially I was angry though. I remember punching some walls in the house.
Yeah.
And I quickly realized that, I had an opportunity here to be a role model for my kids. And one of the most important life lessons I think you can teach kids is or anybody really, is resiliency, right? Like life isn't always fair. Life isn't always easy. And really, in terms of how successful we are in life, I think a lot of times it comes down to how we handle and deal with, adverse things that happen to us and how we respond. And I thought, what a golden opportunity this is for me to role model and show my kids what resiliency in the face of awful things looks like. And if
classic
nothing else, I was
dad move. You're like, I'm going to turn this into a lesson.
Yeah.
No fun and games, boys. This is going to be a lesson.
True enough. But, and I think that's just where I found my inner strength. And what they had actually told me was, there was only a 20% chance I'd be alive in 3 years. And I just said, well, someone's got to be in that 20%. So why not me? And I got into that whole cancer picked the wrong guy mindset. And I took that anger and I converted it into, I'm going to make purpose out of this. And it's going to be to teach my kids about resiliency. And it's going to be also trying to help other patients going through this, and also to help prevent anyone from having to go through what I've been through.
Yeah.
And so that's when you get into the whole piece around talking about it publicly.
Yeah.
And not being shy. And it's awkward because colon cancer in particular is a tough thing to talk about with people because people don't want to talk about their bowels and their bowel habits and stuff, in fact.
Well, present company excluded. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm like, oh, perfect. This is going to be great. Yeah.
So I will tell you one thing I learned early on. If you want to make sure that no one ever sits beside you on public transit, wear a T-shirt that says, ask me about my colon.
Yeah.
You'll be left alone. You'll get a wide berth.
You will have some people that'll sit very close to you and you're like, oh, no, I don't want this anymore. Mommy, Daddy, come save me.
True enough.
Do you find sometimes using humor as a coping mechanism can be kind of insidious? because I noticed this. I had cancer a couple of years ago. Is he joking or isn't he joking? Do you know what I mean?
I do, because I think I'm very similar that way. And for me, what would sometimes go through my head, especially if I was going to post something, was, are people going to think Steve's not okay?
Right.
And, and all of a sudden I'm going to cause like all kinds of concern. But
you were not okay.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
just like, you're in the thick of it. You got cancer. It's like, the treatment isn't working. You've been given this horrible news.
But I guess what I mean is I didn't want people to think I wasn't managing up here. And really, when really that was just my way of managing. And one example that really comes to mind, and I don't want to jump ahead, but as you know, I had to at one point in my sort of treatment journey go for a transplant.
Yeah.
And so I decided to post on Facebook and I think on Twitter, like a Dave Letterman style top 10 list of reasons why I'm a worthy human being to receive an organ donation. And I mean, it was full of sarcasm and humor, but it felt really good for me to kind of lay that out and put that out there. And I think it was well received.
Do you find sometimes, because I found this all the time, that you're having a hard enough time like dealing with your own mental health? Do you find that there's often a lot of pressure, and maybe this is kind of projection a little bit. Maybe you feel like you need to be this kind of like caretaker for people emotionally and mentally. Do you feel often like you have to be the one to say to people like, no, like don't cry, it's okay? Like in the context of like you're getting bad news, like
I mean, absolutely. So, in my case, I'm, married. I have 2 teenage sons.
Yeah.
I'm still blessed enough to have both my parents in my life. And I hate to say it, but there's almost like a little bit of guilt that comes with, I'm sick and I'm causing so much stress and heartache in my parents.
How dare you get cancer? Steve Slack,
I know.
Come on. How
and it
dare
sounds
you?
ridiculous, but on top of everything else you're dealing with, I would be lying if I didn't say there was a little bit of guilt around, the stress and worry I'm causing other people in my life.
I get it.
Which it's crazy, but it's a fact.
No, it's true. Especially like, you're no one wants to have to like, no one wants to see their kids go through something, right? So from the perspective of your parents, it's like, and I'm sure I know my parents went through this as well. There's guilt. There's like, did we do something to contribute to this?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, is this hereditary? And even if it was, like, nobody can control that, right? You're not responsible for the genes you're programmed with or whatever. And then from the other perspective, you've got these, teenage boys.
Yeah.
You've got these boys that are like, I wish there was literally anything I could do for dad. And like, they're also going through their own thing, right?
Yep.
Like puberty. They're going through, like, they're in high school. You know what I mean? Like they're becoming adults soon. And for them to have to deal with this, like, the whole thing is supremely unfair.
I think I worried about the boys in particular because as we both know, the teenage years are sort of a short, fleeting few years. But
Thank God.
Yeah, exactly.
Mine were terrible. I don't know about you, but
but at the same time, they're so sort of special and formative, and I think we all think back to our teenage years at different points in our life, and what I didn't want is I didn't want my cancer and my sickness being all their teenage years was about.
All they remember.
Yeah, I wanted them to have the normal teenage experience, And so, it's something my wife and I talked about right from the beginning, and we did our level best to try to keep things as normal for them as possible. And, part of that is just keeping things light and keeping things moving. And
it's tough, though.
It is.
It's
it can
so
be.
tough.
Yep.
And then it feels performative sometimes, right?
Definitely.
You're like, no, everybody, let's be happy. We're having fun, and we're a happy family, and everything's great.
Yeah. We had one of those recently. We went. My wife said, "What do you want to do for a birthday?" I celebrated my 51st birthday last month.
Which, congratulations. Did you used to look at birthdays like, oh God, I'm getting older?
Yeah.
And do you now kind of look at them like, I'm getting older?
Everyone,
like, good.
Honestly, getting old is a privilege. That's something that I've learned that not everybody gets, and so absolutely, I definitely do celebrate. And so this year I felt like, let's do something. And my wife said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Let's go bowling."
Yeah,
like an old style birthday party from when I was a kid. But so it was like, everything's cool. Let's go bowling.
Did you go to Nebs?
We doing to Nebs?
Nebs is the best.
Nebs is the best.
I had all my birthday parties as a kid there. And then, funnily enough, last year for my 32nd birthday, my wife surprised me with, I've never had a surprise party before, wanted to go bowling again. And like all my friends were there. It was amazing.
It's awesome, right? Yeah. So the one thing though was what surprised me was I could barely get through 2 games of bowling. My body's just still so, I guess, winded and weak from everything it's been through the last couple of years. I could barely get through 2 rounds of bowling. So
it's jarring sometimes. You're like, no, I should be able to do this.
Yeah, I should be able to do this.
You know?
Yeah. So, but so I guess that's an example of what we're saying about, maybe that was a little performative of me to be like, yeah, we can do this. Like, let's go bowling. When I knew I still wasn't feeling 100%.
Yeah.
So,
but still, like, you want to feel normal. You want that normalcy.
You want to do these things. You want your life back, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, and I'm sure you get this all the time, speaking of normalcy, like, and even me looking at you today, to go like, you don't look like you're sick. You don't look like, how recent was the liver transplant?
Was 4 months ago.
Like, that's nuts.
I know. Yeah. It's really incredible.
You look phenomenal.
What they can do. Thanks.
Yeah.
I know. It's amazing.
But there's also some of that maybe sometimes, right? Where it's like, you feel like a flaming bag of trash on the inside, and on the outside, you're like, maybe I'm not getting as much grace as I should be from other people, or maybe like it's almost the mirror's almost gaslighting you in a sense, because you look at yourself and you go like, no, I look good, and then you go, oh my God, I feel like I'm 1,000 years old.
Yeah, that I would say that's exactly what I'm living right now. Where I get up, I shower, get dressed, I look in the mirror, I look great, I feel great. And then a few hours later, I'm like, no, I
need a nap.
Yeah.
Daddy needs some couch time.
That's right.
We need a few more espressos.
Yeah. But I would say, in terms of like family and friends and people that know what I've been through, everybody's extremely supportive and understanding of that. It's where I get into situations with strangers who don't know me, and I get it. I mean, they would look at me and they would never know that I've been through 34 rounds of chemotherapy,
That's
24
nuts.
rounds of antibody therapy, 4 surgeries, including an organ transplant.
Yeah.
I get that they would never look at me and think that that's someone that's been through all that. And so they might say something or do something or be in a situation, and I have to tell them. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I had no idea.
And then you feel like kind of a tool when you have.
I do. I hate having to.
Hey, actually.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I try my best not to.
Yeah.
But sometimes people will kind of almost force your hand a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You get the diagnosis, and the doctor, and I know they have to tell this to people all the time, and it's unfortunate, and it is what it is. It doesn't make it any easier to hear, certainly. But how do you pivot from that to getting involved with, the reason we're here today, literally and figuratively? I mean, I'm a cancer survivor. You're a cancer survivor. We had the bulk of our treatment at Lake Ridge Cancer Center, Durham Region Cancer Center. How do you get involved with the Lake Ridge Health Foundation?
I am so grateful that I did get involved. It's been a real amazing experience and opportunity for me. And really, it come down to I was asked. I was literally at the cancer center,
and they're like, "Put this guy to work."
Yeah,
who needs more on his plate.
Well, I think it. I got to know some of the nurses really well, and one nurse in particular actually had been an employee of mine many years ago.
Oh no, were you a good boss? Or
No,
bad
thank
boss?
gosh, I was a good boss.
Okay,
I was a good boss.
That's what a bad boss would say, right?
Well, what we laughed about is that she was working for me while she was a nursing student, and she'd work Saturdays. I managed a bank, and I would let her bring her textbooks to work, and she'd study at her wicket between customers.
Yeah.
And crazy how all those years later, she is now a nurse in charge of my cancer care. The rest is history, but it's been an amazing experience, and it really kind of opened my eyes to how important community fundraising is when it comes to cancer care. And one example I'll give is it's very exciting is through the Our Cancer campaign, how we're going to acquire a PET scan machine. And I would say before being involved with the foundation in that, it never occurred to me that the government would fund a cancer center but not also fund all the diagnostic tools that are needed to diagnose cancer, but also gauge the progress of treatment. You know what I mean? Like what that was really surprising to me. Because to me, if you have a cancer center and you're providing treatment, you need to be able to gauge the effectiveness of that
Yeah.
treatment. So you need those machines. It's not optional. Really speaks to the power of community and that the community was able to band together and do this. And of course, we didn't just get the PET scan machine. We also got the surgical robot.
Yeah.
Which again, to your point, it's not just acquiring the robot, but it's all the training and expertise that goes with it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you want to make sure people know what they're doing.
yeah.
Don't throw one of it. They're just like, Steve Coulter,
Yeah.
you guys can work the robot today. I don't know.
Here's actually, speaking of that, here's like a crazy quick little story that ties in nicely with our cancer campaign and the robot. So I'm going through the process of having people scanned to be my liver donor. And so the first person who stepped up, amazing, one of my best friends, his name's Ben. And
Shout out Ben.
Shout out Ben. So anyway, Ben starts the screening process, and we're sure it's going to be him. He's a super fit, super healthy guy, and he gets through all the initial stages of the screening. And then one of the later stages is they send you for like a head-to-toe MRI to make sure there's no health issues lying underneath that you're not aware of before you're put through this major surgery to donate your liver. Unbelievably, they found cancer in Ben that he had no idea was there. And it was on his kidney. And so talk about coming full circle.
My God.
Ben ended up being, so of course he couldn't be my donor because of that. But Ben ended up being one of the first patients to have surgery with that surgical robot that we acquired through the campaign to remove that cancer. And he's cured. He's fine now. It was caught nice and early. But they told him, had he not gone to be screened for me to be my donor, that cancer would have grown in him and undetected until by the time he had symptoms, it would have been too late.
When it's similar to similar or not similar, you didn't go in under the pretense of or pretext rather of I want to be an organ donor for somebody. You went in because you had some symptoms. And I think it's just a testament to I don't believe in karma. I don't necessarily believe in a higher power, but that gets you pretty close to believing that just that what a benevolent soul. The type of person that's I'll give you a chunk of my liver.
Yeah.
And because of that, discovers that the cancer, and that sucks, obviously, but we've got the cancer so early because of this that you're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It was when I remember the day he phoned me to tell me that news. Our minds were just blown. His
What are
and
the
mine.
odds?
What are the odds, right? It's like something out of a movie script or something. Just unbelievable. And honestly, my emotions at the time, I'm hoping to find a life-saving donor, and I thought it was going to be him, and I just found out it wasn't him. And we were back to the drawing board.
How long ago did this happen?
Last summer.
Damn.
Yeah. But honestly, my feelings were purely, I was so relieved for him that this was found and he was going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it softens the pain a little bit of
yeah, for sure.
Transplant can't happen this time.
Yep.
Right?
But it happened later. It was the third person screened who ended up being my donor. And it was also a nice story. Is a very old friend from high school who in the last 30 years I had seen once. Her name's Jeanette. Shout out Jeanette. Jeanette stepped up and ended up being a match, and she was my donor. Just amazing. Like you say, there's just these amazing benevolent people out there that.
And sorry, you went to high school together?
Yeah.
Were you friends in high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were friends in high school, but
you don't want to be Jeanette's bully in high school, right?
Oh yeah, no. Thank God I was not Jeanette's bully. But yeah, after high school we kind of went our separate ways, and we had reunited over Facebook a couple of years ago. But other than exchanging a couple Facebook messages or comments on posts, hadn't seen her. And then actually this time last year, we decided to meet up for lunch and just sort of reunite. And then what I didn't know was that after that, she decided to start the process of seeing if she could be my donor.
She didn't even mention it.
She kept it from me.
Yeah.
I had no idea until a week before the surgery, she decided to reach out and let me know.
What's the sell? Because as much as, especially I think as Canadians, we're so we don't want to put anybody out. We don't want to be a problem for anybody. But also, I would like to live, I think is probably your mindset. What's the sell? What's the Steve Slacks sell? I need part of your body.
Other than my Dave Letterman top 10 list, that was my initial sell.
Yeah.
No, it's a hard sell. It was such a weird position to be in, to have to go out to the public and say, I want to live, and to do that, I need someone to donate 2/3 of their liver to me.
Yeah.
It was very humbling and very difficult. And all I could say is, your liver will grow back.
Yeah.
It's not like giving a kidney where you're now short a kidney. You'll get through the surgery and your liver will grow back to its full normal size. But
What's for anybody on the fence when it comes to liver donation, what's the recovery? Like, what's the length of the recovery process like?
well, I guess I can speak specifically, in terms of Jeanette, my donor's situation. I mean, she was working remote, but back at work, like working again, only a few weeks after the surgery, which is remarkable. I think they say in terms of recovery for like a full recovery, it's about 3 months.
Okay.
But she was back working again after a few weeks. And then I think in office working after probably about 6 weeks, something like that.
I think what Steve meant to say is you can take a year off of work if you want, right?
Sorry, that's what I meant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's still not back at work, I think is what Steve actually
She's
said.
having a great time.
Yeah, definitely not at Disney World. Definitely not taking the family to Disney World.
Not on a beach somewhere,
Yeah.
no. Yeah.
But when you're like having conversation, we're sitting, we're getting dinner, right? It's been a while since we've caught up. I'm like, hey, Steve, what's new? You go, well, it's funny you ask. Maybe no more beers tonight because I got something I got my eye on.
That was actually something I was teasing Ben about starting the process. Was like, hey, you can't have any beer now because you're going through the screening. Another thing I was doing with Ben was at the gala. I was at the gala for Lakeridge in the fall, and of course, you may recall they actually had the surgical robot there.
They did, yeah.
That you could kind of like try it out and play with it. So I was taking selfies with it because at that point we knew he was getting the surgery with it in a few weeks, and so I'm going, hey, I'm screwing with your machine, sending him selfies and stuff.
You bust it. He's like, Steve, I need to have a word with you outside.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you're like chatting with, like, honestly, like, how do you ask people to do that?
Yeah, I guess I just put it out there, and I think, and so really social media was how I did it, because how else do you spread the word? And all I could promise people is that, because there aren't words that are adequate enough to thank someone for doing something like that. There just aren't.
Yeah.
And so all I could promise people is that, whoever does this for me, I promise you, I will live the rest of my life proving that I was worthy of it, that I will, take care of myself, and I will give back. I will do good things. I will just make the most of my life, of those extra years that you've given me. And I mean, to me, that's like all you can really do.
And you have to help them move.
Yeah.
You got to pick them up at the airport. You got to babysit
I'm
the
now that
kids.
guy, right? Like,
It's
if
like,
there's anything you need.
And you're not allowed to complain about it
No,
anymore, right?
absolutely. There's
Just
no
like, no,
complaining. Yeah.
3 a.m. is when you lay. Okay, cool.
I'll be there.
Couldn't take an Uber, eh?
No.
Okay, cool. Well, Steve will be there.
Yep.
Steve will be there. So where are we right now? We've had the liver transplant a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I know it's annoying to hear this because I heard it, and I feel like because we've both been through cancer treatment, like I feel like maybe I get a pass on this one, but there's still a lot going on up here. There's still a lot going on in here, and there's still a lot going on, physically.
Yeah, it's
Like, what's the status report?
the status report right now is, I've come a long way in the last 4 months. When I was first discharged from the hospital after the transplant, and I was in hospital 23 days.
Damn.
It was
At
rough.
Lakeridge.
No, that surgery happened at Toronto General, but everything else I did at Lakeridge. But anyway, when I first come home, I couldn't even walk. I couldn't stand. I had to have a walker to be able to just stand up and just get to the bathroom or just get around the house or whatever.
Which is tough because you're like, you want your mobility, you want your autonomy, you want to feel like a grown man.
You just there's no freedom there, right? Like and I don't. You don't want to constantly have to rely on everybody else for everything. But it was a real motivator to kind of work through it all. But I came home unable to walk. I came home with 2 surgical drains still in me and IV, and
Sleeping on that thing.
horrible.
Which side did you have the IV in?
Oh, it was in this side.
Like a PICC line?
Yeah.
So if you've never had a PICC line, it's they go in through, I think, like an artery or something like that. It's weird. Like you lay down on a table, they've got an X-ray, and they've got 2 people, and they're working the whole thing.
Yeah.
And like they also don't really sell anything to put around it so you can shower properly.
No, mine fell out. Like I pulled it out by
God.
accident and had to go to ER. Yeah.
Gross.
It was gross and a
But
real
like you
pain.
can't. So which arm was it in? Sorry.
So sorry, actually the PICC line was in this arm.
So
over
you
here.
just you can never sleep on that. So
Yeah.
the first time that you're like allowed to sleep on that arm afterwards.
Yeah. Golden.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
You're like, I don't need to have sex ever again. That was good
This is
enough.
so good.
Just sleeping on the other side of my body.
Yeah. But so yeah, I've come a long way from there, and I think as far as recovery from the surgery goes, I'm mostly sort of still dealing with some energy issues, and also I'm on, of course, anti-rejection medication for life, and those come with a bit of a slew of side effects. So I'm mostly just working through side effects of the medication, and just working on trying to get my strength and energy back.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of strength because I was laid up for so long. So
Yeah,
it's
you
just
can't,
trying
you
to get
can't
that
hit the
back.
gym. You can't,
Can't
you
do
know.
anything.
You're doing like, I remember in hospital, they were like, just do some like wall push-ups. I'm like, that's going to do literally nothing.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, well, I'm jacked all of a sudden. Great, amazing.
Yeah, I'm still at the point where they're like, if you can walk, a kilometer and a half, that's
Yeah.
amazing. So I'm trying to push that.
Yeah.
And my wife and I go for walks all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
How do you, we spoke about you know, how you handle this as, it feels weird to say a child when you're in your 50s, but like, your parents, like, how does it, we talked about how to deal with that, like when you're in the context of your parents and in the context of a parent, but you and your wife, because that's a one-of-a-kind relationship.
Yeah.
And, my wife and I certainly had struggles during this, understandably, right?
Yeah.
But how do you find time to be together where you're not talking about cancer or health and it's just like the old times?
Yeah. I got to start that by telling you that how incredibly lucky I am to have my wife.
Shout out the wife. The wife.
Shout out
yeah,
the
yeah.
wife. She's been through a lot. I often say I almost think it's worse being the spouse of a cancer patient than the cancer patient themselves.
You feel helpless.
Yeah, I can't imagine that feeling of helplessness watching your spouse go through what they go through. It's been really hard on her, of course, but she's been amazing, and I couldn't imagine of going through this without her. But to some extent, it's felt like, it's hard to go back to, like, it's like there's this like definite line in our life of like our life pre-cancer and then our life after cancer. But what we've done, I think, is really tried to make the most of our life post-cancer. And she's a real shy person and not one to come out of her shell, but she's been dragged out of it because of all the stuff I've done with the foundation.
Yeah.
She's been involved in a lot of it. And she's been great. She's been a great sport because I don't think, anyone that knows Rosaline would know that she's not the type of person that would want to be on a billboard or the side of a bus.
You, on the other hand,
Yeah,
like, bust me up, baby.
Yeah, that's right. So she's been great at kind of doing that with me. But yeah, other than that, I think it's you just try to find those moments. What we've learned is when I'm feeling good and I'm feeling up to it, we make plans. It's like, let's get away for a weekend.
Let's go bowling.
Let's go bowling.
Yeah.
Whatever the case is, right? It's like when I'm feeling up for it, we don't put it off. We do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drink that good bottle. Well, I was going to say drink that good bottle of wine.
Not me.
Maybe we're not drinking.
Yeah.
Maybe we're drinking the de-alcoholized wine. Or
we are
having
yeah.
some Diet Cokes or something like that.
I've really grown to like the zero. I forget what it's called, but the 0% alcohol Corona.
Okay, I haven't tried that one.
It's a good one.
The Heineken one. Have you tried? Are you a Guinness drinker?
I am not, but I do like the Heineken one as well.
Heineken one's good. So I went on my first, let me back up. My wife and I have been on 2 vacations as adults. We went on a honeymoon 2 years later, like 2 years after we got married at City Hall. And then we went on vacation last summer to Grenada. Her family's from Grenada. But I had never been like, people talk about like going with the boys, right? Going with your friends. And I had my first trip to Ireland. So we went to the Guinness factory and we found out at the airport as we're about to leave, my friend Michelle goes, I got to tell y'all something. I just found out I'm pregnant, so I will not. We're going to where alcohol was invented, right? We're going to Dublin, Ireland, and she can't drink. And we go to the Guinness brewery and we tried the 0.0. You can't tell the difference.
Really?
So I feel like, and I'm going to try and tie this back to getting a liver transplant. I feel like, you don't have alcohol. It's not the end of the world. You can get the same taste.
Yeah, along the way with my treatment a year before the transplant, it came to a point with my liver and the damage caused by the chemotherapy that I had to not give up alcohol anyways. Not that I was much of a drinker, but the odd beer or a glass of red wine with a nice dinner or something like that. And I had to let that go. And now 2 years later, it's like I don't
really miss it.
No, I don't. Especially when there's some de-alcoholized beers out there that are actually pretty good.
And water. I hear that water's. They're always like, you should drink more water.
Water is supposed to be pretty good for you.
It's kind of boring though.
Yeah, it is a little.
Make it more fun.
Yeah.
Zhuzh it up a little bit. Water needs a rebrand.
Well, and I used to like ginger ale. I don't know about you, but I found, because that's what they give you on the chemo suite when you're getting treatment, I cannot drink ginger ale anymore.
They gave you ginger ale?
Yeah, it ruined
They were
it
like,
for me.
we got water or nothing.
Oh, really?
Pick what you want. I'm like, I guess water? I don't know.
I had the choice of water, orange juice, or ginger ale.
Wow.
And yes.
Living like a king over there.
I know. But
Also, you said 2021 is when your treatment started?
Yeah.
I also had treatment in 2020. What's going on?
we should bring Fatima on here to ask her.
To grill her about this.
That's
Were you
right.
slipping the money?
No.
Damn.
No, I don't know. I guess it's like just like a Pavlovian thing where I can't stand the taste of ginger ale anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, whatever you consume a lot of when you're getting chemotherapy, right?
Yeah.
You're just
Yeah.
like, I can't ever do it again. I ordered from one of my favorite restaurants in the world. I had a stem cell transplant in 2021. And everyone's like every person on my medical team was like, don't do it. Because I talked about this. I'm like, I'm so excited to celebrate. I'm going to get, there's this place in Chinatown called Mother's Dumplings. And I love this. Been to this place 1,000 times. And I order it the day of the transplant. And I get it. It's delicious. It's so good. And I'm vomiting in my mouth right now thinking about it. And I will never have that again for the rest of my life. Won't happen. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You needed to wait a little longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spoiled it. It was still worth it, though. It was really good. I earned it that day. Let's take it back to, because you're a big advocate for, obviously, cancer screening in general, but getting, for colorectal cancer, being screened for that. Now, you said that you were diagnosed at 48 years old.
Yeah.
What is it currently? Is it 50 in Ontario?
So it is 50 in Ontario. It's 50 across Canada. And meanwhile, in other areas like the United States, and I believe even over in the UK, a few years ago, both countries dropped their screening age to 45 based on abundance of research that's come out that shows quite clearly that there is, although colorectal cancer rates in the above 50 population are coming down nicely, in the under 50 crowd, it's increasing. For about the last 10, 15 years, it's been increasing at about 2% a year. And they really have no idea why.
I was about to ask.
They have no idea why. There's a lot of research that still needs to be done. But it's interesting because I'm like the poster child for it because it's under 50 and it's typically left-sided, the left side of your colon, and that's exactly where mine was, and down in the sigmoid area, and that's where most of the cancer, colorectal cancer, they're seeing in the under 50 crowd. That's where it is. They have no idea why, and the problem is we're getting it before we're old enough to be screened. And the other piece is that, unfortunately, and I fall into this category as well. Because traditionally it's been considered a cancer of people that are 50 plus, when people have symptoms and they're under 50 and they go to their primary care physician,
It's dismissed.
it is. So in my case, I was told I went 2 years earlier before I was diagnosed.
Damn.
And my doctor said, oh, it's food sensitivities, and it said, stay away from dairy or whatever, and that kind of thing.
Oh, you're gluten free. It's a gluten allergy.
And unfortunately, one of the biggest regrets I'll always have for the rest of my life is that for 2 years, I just kind of went with that. And so for 2 years, that cancer grew and spread because I just trusted
I mean, it would just be so great if we could lower that screening rate. Now, you could, I guess, pay out of pocket for this, right? This is a matter of like getting screened for colon cancer or colorectal cancer. This is a matter of like government insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that can be cost prohibitive.
Well,
for
here's
people,
the thing:
right?
is that what when you stop and think about it, it makes so much sense because if we were to lower the screening age to 45, yes, the government's going to pay more up front. Taxpayers can pay more up front for all those extra colonoscopies that we're doing. But think of the amount of cancer that we're going to catch or prevent.
And treatment's expensive.
I mentioned I had 34 rounds of chemo, 24 rounds of antibody therapy. I don't know what the cost of chemo is, but the antibody therapy I was on, I know is $6,000 a month. I did 24 rounds of that. That's all covered.
Yeah.
And 4 surgeries, including a liver transplant. The liver transplant alone, I know, if you were to go to the States and get a liver transplant, it's $1 million.
Yeah.
So what have I cost the Ontario healthcare system?
Yeah,
just
pull
me
out
alone,
your wallet.
right? Yeah,
You're getting lunch for everybody in Ontario.
I probably should.
Yeah.
When you look at what it's cost, and for the sake of what's a colonoscopy cost a system, $1,000?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a no-brainer to me that we should screen more, and in the long run, it's actually going to save the system money. And oh, by the way, it's also going to save a lot of lives. I actually got the opportunity to go to Queen's Park in the fall, and I actually went to what's called an all-parties cancer caucus where I got to speak to the MPs. That opportunity came to me through an amazing organization called CRAN, which is the Colorectal Cancer Resource and Action Network. And
This is an international organization, right?
National. It's a Canada-wide nonprofit, and what they do is they provide support, education, and advocacy for colorectal cancer patients and their families across Canada. They're a wonderful organization, and actually, that opportunity to work with them came to me from my work with the foundation. I got on CRAN's radar through everything we were doing with Our Cancer campaign, and the CEO of CRAN reached out to me, a wonderful lady named Philomena, and told me about CRAN and what they do, what their mission was, and asked me to get on board. And so since then, I've been doing advocacy work such as the lobbying at Queen's Park.
Yeah.
And I'm also a volunteer cancer coach.
What does that look like?
It's
Like, is that so I get cancer, I go like, I pick up ring, ring, hey, is Steve there?
So how it works is this, is if you're diagnosed with colorectal cancer and you live in Canada, your oncologist may, if they know about CRAN, will refer you to the organization for support, or people find it through other ways.
Yeah.
So they'll come to CRAN, they'll do an intake form, and CRAN, again, the cancer coaching is one of a number of amazing services that they provide. But what they'll do is they'll pair you with a suitable cancer coach. We have a whole staff of volunteer cancer coaches. And because of all my experience with the liver Mets, I am the CRAN liver Mets coach. So I've got patients that I support from BC right across to Nova Scotia. If they register and they have liver Mets, then I'm the guy.
And so do you have like, I'm thinking back to university days, like office hours?
No, it's very ad hoc. Like whenever they want, they know, like we usually schedule an initial meeting where we'll do like a Zoom meeting or whatever and talk. And after that, it's very casual. They have my cell. They can just text me anytime.
Wow.
Anytime they want to chat or whatever. And really what happens is it ends up transcending a coach-patient relationship. It becomes more of a friendship. And one, in fact, Tim out in BC, I walked him through or not to say walked him through, but I kind of gave him some information and helped him get to transplant as well. 6 weeks after me, he had the same transplant I did.
That's amazing.
And he's doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough burden. And I know that you feel, I shouldn't say I know. I'm guessing that you feel like this is the bare minimum for you, right?
Yeah.
To just like give back in all of these ways. And we shouted at everybody else. Shout out Steve Slack. Like it's just, no, it's a lot. And I hope that you recognize it. I hope you don't recognize it so well that you stop doing it, obviously, from a selfish point of view. But just like the word incredible doesn't even feel fair. It feels cheap, but it's a lot to expect of yourself. It's a lot you're doing for other people. And I just want to make sure that like Steve's taking care of Steve sometimes too.
It's funny you say
I
that.
know you put yourself last.
You're starting to sound like my wife, and I mean that in the best possible way. But there's times definitely when Rosaline is like,
Dude,
"Are you sure you
chill.
want to do this? Like, why are you doing this yourself?" So, anyone in who works in cancer care will tell you. And I always say, anyone who works in oncology, the doctors, the nurses, everybody, they're incredibly special people.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do what they do. And one of the things, of course, they have to deal with is they build relationships with patients, and inevitably, sometimes a patient passes away, and that's a hard thing for them. And so, what Rosaline has seen with me over the last couple of years is I've lost a couple myself. So I make these connections with patients, and then and in this case, it's like, say, whereas like a healthcare worker loses their patient, that's tough. But in my case, what adds to it is the fact that they passed from the same thing that I'm going through.
Survivor's guilt.
Yeah. And so it's been, so I've had my moments, and absolutely, I'm a huge believer in therapy. I do have therapists that I talk
me
to.
too.
And I'm such an advocate for that.
Yeah.
You've got to take care of yourself, holistically, and that includes the mind.
Yeah.
And
Were you seeing a therapist before you got diagnosed?
no.
Okay.
No, but we had opportunities in our life, in our family prior to cancer where we use therapists, and that's what sort of made me a real believer.
Yeah.
And it's certainly been very helpful for me along the way. Yeah.
Just to have somebody to to have someone who literally has to listen to you for 60 minutes, right?
Yeah, and the other thing I found is that that's very true. It's what can be just as effective and sometimes even more effective is getting to know other cancer patients and talking with them, because even the best therapists, if they've never experienced cancer themselves, they don't totally
can
know what you're
sympathize,
going
they can't
through.
empathize.
Right. Even I have the most incredible oncologist, I think. I'm biased, obviously, at Lakeridge, but I'm going to shout out again to Dr. Rothenstein.
Shout out Dr. Rothenstein.
He's an amazing man. And I'll never forget the one time we were talking about all this kind of stuff. And he said, Steve,
A cancer?
I mean,
just
like the mental side of it, like going
stuff.
the mental side of it,
Yeah.
right? And he said to me, Steve, I've been doing this for so many years. I've treated countless patients. I'm on top of all the research and clinical studies. And he goes, even I don't really know what you're going through, because I've never been through it myself. And that really hit me. First of all, it was an incredibly empathetic thing to say. But it sort of made me go, yeah, wow, like that's true. And so what I found is there really is this kind of connection between cancer patients where we can speak and we have this understanding that is just on a slightly different level than anybody else, because we've walked that experience, we've lived it, and so I've found it extremely cathartic to speak with other cancer patients, and I guess that may be the risk of sounding a little selfish. Sort of the payback for me for doing the cancer coaching is just having those conversations with other cancer patients. As much as I'm really trying to give back and help them, whether they realize it or not, they're helping me.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you discover that a lot of people had cancer you had no idea, like years ago? Because I found when I got diagnosed, I had people that reached out to me, and some of them said explicitly, like, "Hey, like, please don't mention this to anybody else. Like, this is just deeply personal." And they're saying, I'm not at a place where I feel comfortable. Like, I was very vulnerable about it, very open about it. I did a live radio show every year, that'd be nice, every day. I do chemo in the morning, I do the radio show in the afternoon, and like I still work the whole time. I took some time off for a transplant. Everyone's different, I acknowledge that. Not everybody is like us, right? Not everybody wants to make this a big thing. But regardless, the amount of people that came out and I'm like, I had no idea.
Yeah, I did experience that. And it was really eye-opening, and like you say, I think every cancer person's journey is personal and individual, and no two are exactly the same. And so I support any cancer patient in terms of their decisions, in terms of how they want to handle that and share it. They have my full support and understanding. That being said, I guess the person that I am and sort of how I'm wired, I couldn't imagine going through what I've been through without handling it the way I've handled it, without like keeping it to myself and not sharing with people and not letting people know that, hey, I'm going through this right now. And
it's part of who you are.
It is part of who I am. And I one of the things I really found humbling about the whole experience from day one is, and I remember one of my first meetings with Dana, I said this to her.
Dana Robinson from the foundation. Yeah. Shout out Dana.
Shout out Dana. I said to her, I feel like I have a nation around me. I have all the, I didn't know that many people
What do you
cared.
call it? The Slack pack, right? That's what you call your team? Yeah.
Yeah, Slack pack.
Yeah.
So it's like, it sounds crazy, but I didn't know that many people cared enough about me. And so that was a very comforting thing to experience at a time when, you needed comfort the most.
Yeah.
So I was glad that, for me anyways, it worked amazingly well, and I drew a lot of strength to kind of get through treatment and get through everything from all of that support and well wishes from so many people.
Yeah.
It really opened my eyes to some of the themes of the Our Cancer campaign, as far as it's cancer doesn't just impact the person, it impacts the family, it impacts
everybody,
the friend network, everyone around, it impacts the community. And it really takes a community to kind of help someone through that. When you look at all of the donations that people in the community make to the foundation and to the Cancer Center, I am standing here a direct benefactor and a success.
Technically sitting, but
okay, technically sitting.
So you type in your American Express number or whatever you're using to pay with, and then it's kind of like it goes into like the ether or whatever, and then you're like, what does the money do? But like, we're sitting here because of a lot of the equipment that this money has funded.
Exactly. I think before I was diagnosed, did I really have an understanding of what the Lakeridge Health Foundation was, or what fundraising really is necessary for a hospital system?
Yeah.
But I certainly have a great understanding of it now. in terms of the impact that those dollars have when people make donations to the Lakeridge Health Foundation. So, and I'm sitting here an example of that. That the equipment that's purchased, the treatments that are offered, all as a result of the money that's donated, and I end up benefiting from all of that, and it helps with my outcome ultimately as a cancer patient.
Well, and we assume that, we live in Ontario and in Canada in general, it's universal healthcare, right? The government just picks up the tab for everything. Yeah. And then you hear, Lakeridge Health Foundation raised $21 million. Why do we have to raise the money? And the reality is, if we don't raise this money, we're not getting things like a PET CT scanner, which the foundation was able to buy. We're not able to get a surgical robot, right? Like the foundation was able to buy with this money raised in this community, raised by everybody.
Yeah, that was something that blew my mind, that, those are things that the government wouldn't necessarily provide to a regional hospital system and a regional cancer center. But that is the fact. And so it's absolutely, to hear that number, that they hit $21 million, just absolutely mind-blowing. And I got to tell you, when I heard the news, I was just over the moon thrilled, and just so impressed with this community that we live in. Again, all of the efforts and the donations and everything else that go to Lakeridge Health Foundation are making a difference and helping to improve cancer outcomes.
Yeah. Again, we need to keep banding together. We've been doing such a good job, and I know this is going to continue. And it's just so great to do this work.
Absolutely, it's important work, and it's work that, as far as I'm concerned, can never stop. We just have to keep going.
Keep hustling, keep grinding.
That's right.
It's a grind set, not a mindset.
That's right.
Thanks to Steve Slack for joining us on this episode of Brace for Impact, presented by Lakeridge Health Foundation. And thank you to Petley Hair Insurance Brokers for letting us film this episode at their beautiful location in Oshawa. This space is amazing, and so are the people who work there. Brace for Impact wants to give you a sneak peek behind-the-scenes look at how donor support makes all of this amazing work possible. We want to inspire you. We want to motivate you to make a difference in your own way, because it's people like you who are making a difference in this community. My name is Colter Bouchard. Join me by giving or getting involved at braceforimpactpod.ca.